I'm sure most of you have already seen it, but I mean, the investigation, 2 and some years ago with that horrible shooting, 22 people murdered by that lunatic in Nova Scotia. And it sounds like there was a lot of confusion, Keystone Cop sort of things going on. The communications between the RCMP and the public and even their own officers was a bit of a mess. An RCMP officer lost her life in that. The investigation, or at least some of the follow-up and everything, some of the information has just come out now. And it was the Halifax, it was a Halifax newspaper that put it out. I'm not sure who they were now, but they found information, basically, Halifax Examiner, there we go. I want to give them credit where it's due. It's a very good long story that it looks like the police commissioner, Brenda Lucky, I should say, was directly screwing around with the investigation. I mean, this is right when it was happening. And she was appointed by Justin Trudeau. And it sounds like her messing around with that investigation, possibly screwing it up, was at the behest of Trudeau and the public safety minister at the time. Like, this is huge. This is massive. This isn't just, I mean, we know the RCMP commissioner's politicized. That's nothing new. When you got somebody appointed by one person, they're going to be a bit beholden to them. But that's to a point of giving press conferences, being a little fluffier than you should with the Prime Minister's office, or doing things to help a little. But you don't step in on the biggest mass murder in Canadian history, mass shooting, and screw around with the investigation on behalf of the Prime Minister. That's a whole new line having been crossed. This is huge. And some of it was just in communications. There was apparently a protocol saying, okay, the Halifax detachment has a communications head who's going to speak to the press and share the information about what's going on as it breaks. We're talking just hours after they finally shot the lunatic who was shooting people. And they're doing a press conference, and this RCMP press officer is getting questions from the press saying, well, your numbers are conflicting with Brenda Lucky's numbers. What are you talking about? Well, Brenda did an interview with CBC and CTV and Canadian Press, and she said this many and this and this many and that. She's out there on her own giving different numbers, like she's put herself front and center against the policy of her own government to try and put herself front and center on this is, again, we're talking only hours after that this person had been shot. What the hell is she doing? And then beyond that, though, that's just the more minor of the interference. The next one was she was trying to force the investigators to release inside information on what the firearms used in this were. And again, there's notes from one of the RCMP officers saying that she was doing this because she promised the Prime Minister and the Safety Minister that she would. Because they wanted it out there, because they wanted to get their firearms bill and ban a whole bunch of different types of firearms out there. And they wanted to make sure that the public saw what these firearms were. So it helps them make their case for their legislation. But this was in the midst of an investigation. In fact, it was an international one. They had determined that these firearms had come from the United States illegally. So they were working with American law enforcement. And some of this needs discretion. You're still trying to find out who smuggled them, why, where did they come from, what were they. You keep that information tight for a while when you're in the midst of an investigation. But that was politically impractical for Trudeau, who wants to rush through, as he did a couple weeks later, with a massive order in council banning a whole bunch of firearms. So she tried to pressure investigators to screw up their own investigation and release that information. They refused, thankfully. They basically told her to go to hell. There was a tweet from a clown with the Toronto Star on that issue yesterday. It just showed, I think I retweeted it and said, this is what subsidized media will buy you. Or the spot, the response. If you look on my Twitter account, Corey B. Morgan on Twitter, because I can't remember the name of him. I don't read the bloody Red Star that often. But it's the truth. Basically, he was trying to run interference for the Liberal Party. And he says, well, yeah, this story is interesting. Might need some more investigation. By the way, Pierre Poilievre, look at the language he was doing. Look at it's like this media subsidized tour of a columnist just saying, hey, look, squirrel. We got what could be one of the biggest scandals of the decade breaking, and he's saying, go look over there. That's what they're spending your tax dollars to do. This government is corrupt. It's to the point of influencing the commissioner of the RCMP. It's got the media dancing like puppets for them. The man should be ripped from office. The entire government should be ripped from office. This is Canada, though. I don't know what it takes. I really don't. But what we do need right now is an inquiry. We need a truly independent inquiry. I want to hear from our parliamentarians. I want to hear from our leaders, and the NDP should even be standing up on this and saying, look, we need to strike this. We need to subpoena people. We need to get to the bottom of this and find out just what the hell happened here. Because how deep does this get? How bold are they willing to get to screw with our justice system to try and help themselves in policy positions? I mean, a lot of people have pointed out, that Trudeau never gets charged with anything, it seems. The RCMP investigate all sorts of stuff and things never happen.